Welcome, audience. Hello. My name is Dave Wattel. I'm a licensed lawyer of 30 plus years, Arizona, Washington, and Oregon licensed. I have the pleasure today to spend some time with two outstanding members of the Prove Up the Damage community, Rob Tremp, Certified Life Care Planner, and Nik Volkov, economist. I'd like to introduce both of them to you. Let's start with Rob first. Rob, you are a certified life care planner. Why don't you tell us what that is and what's your background in that regard, and then we'll move on to Nik next.
Sure, thanks, Dave. I'll be brief. I am a certified life care planner, national board certification, as well as a national board certified vocational rehabilitation counselor. So I talk about two different types of damages: future care needs and the loss of earning capacity that may go along with those needs. Master's degree in rehabilitation counseling and special education. I do casework all over the country, all 50 states, state and federal courts, and that's about it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Nik, what about you? You're an economist. How does that fit into this picture?
Yes, thank you, Dave. I'm Nik Volkov. I hold a PhD in finance. I'm a certified valuation analyst and a master analyst in forensic finance. I'm a professor of finance also at Mercer University in Atlanta. I am an economic damages expert and testify in both federal and state courts as to the present value of life care plans, as well as present value of lost earning capacity benefits and household services of individuals involved in personal injury, wrongful death, and sometimes employment cases.
Excellent. So the first question that comes to mind, gentlemen, is why are both of you needed potentially on a damages claim?
Sure, and I'll start. Any time when a person is reviewing a case, whether it's a lawyer or a case manager or a medical provider, if there's a question of, is there going to be future care needs, and if you answer, well, gosh, I don't know, that's when you pick up the phone and you call a life care planner like myself and say, hey, Rob, I have a case. 30-year-old individual, they had a surgery on their leg. Are they going to have any kind of future care needs in the future? Well, maybe. There's arthritis, there's refusion, there's physical therapy. All of those types of things add up to a certain dollar amount that need to be captured. So if there's a life care plan, a well-written life care plan answers questions and they never raise questions. So in the very beginning, if you have a question or any kind of doubt, is my client going to have any kind of future care needs? If there's a doubt there, then you pull the trigger, call a life care planner such as myself and have that discussion with them.
And what about the EC? How does that come into play?
Yeah, certainly. One of the most overlooked things is, well, gosh, my 35-year-old roofer needs another surgery, but they could probably go back to work after physical therapy and the surgery, and they should be okay. Well, not necessarily, because the data and the statistics can show that they might go back to work initially, but they're not going to work as long into the future. They're going to have a truncated work-life expectancy, and even missing a year or two of that, a person like Nik will show the compounding effect of that 1, 2, 3, 4 years of reduction of work and how that will compound over 20, 30, 15 years, and it can sometimes have a very large consequence to the person financially if that's not captured.
So you're going to calculate out the potential cost associated with this individual's care needs over their life expectancy, and then you're going to calculate potentially their lost earnings or lost earning capacity over their work life expectancy. And then, Nik, where do you come into play on top of that?
Yes. So when a life care planner such as Rob creates a life care plan, they provide essentially a tables of that give us the cost of the need, the frequency of the need, and the timing of the need, whether it be for a medical procedure or loss or replacement of some home services. However, those figures are presented in nominal dollars, which means that that is what it costs today to replace those specific needs. What most of us probably know is that there is inflation and that various goods and services grow in price and time. Well, those services and goods, the price for them grows at different rates for different services. As such, for example, the transportation or the cost of cars has actually been unchanged over the last 20 years, whereas cost of hospital services has grown at an average of 6% per year over the same period. So what I do is I compute the future values or the future cost of those items included in the life care plan. Another aspect of my work is also recognizing that the sum, the settlement or the verdict is received today, and the capital can be invested in some nearly risk-free instrument that would generate return. So the second component of my work is to take those future costs of the life care plan and discount them to present at an appropriate rate to come up with what's called a present value of the life care plan, or what is the appropriate compensation today to offset those future care needs costs.
And Nick, can follow up to that, where do you come up with this data to bring either a life care plan cost or a earning capacity claim to present value?
So the data all comes from government sources. I use the historic inflation for various components of the medical inflation index to compute the future values of the life care plan, which is reported by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics and the Congressional Budget Office. Data I use for the calculation of future growth, where I use the Consumer Price Index growth. In terms of the discounting, I use the AAA municipal bond rates, which are available through Bloomberg or other financial sources.
So it sounds like you use some pretty conservative and reliable data. Hard to place much objection on what you do.
Yes, yes, very much so. Very much so.
Okay. I want to come back, Nick, here shortly to you about a specific example. Rob, what comes to mind to me is, why, if I'm an attorney, right, and I want to document my client's future care needs, why don't I just go to one of their physicians and say, hey, doc, tell me what this client of mine, this patient needs. Why not just do that?
Sure. So a life care plan cannot be done on a singular basis. You need a team approach. It's actually in the methodology and the definition of a life care plan. The problem with doctors going it alone is they might be in a position where they're stuck recommending things that are outside their scope of practice, and or they just don't have the background knowledge and training as to how much things cost over a lifetime. So we have a costing issue. A secondary benefit of a life care plan is knowing what the needs are, surgeries, PT, medications, but a life care planner can obtain from multiple different types of sources, published data, or even calling different providers to get an accurate detail of what the costs are that are real, that are not inflated, not adjusted, not discounted, et cetera, as to what the jury can then understand what the costs are to award.
And do you then also utilize some of the treating physicians, maybe some or all of them, in terms of providing foundation for what those care needs are?
Yes, on a catastrophic case, you can have a gastroenterologist, orthopedic, a neurologist, several different types of doctors. So I write to each of them to understand what the future care needs is within their scope of practice. So it makes sense to write to all the treaters, ask what they need in the future, and then I do the research as to what the cost is. On a single case where there may be one or two back surgeries or pain management, I write to that doctor. So for example, I case this week, 30-year-old male, ACDF, anterior cervical disc fusion, was done a year ago, still very symptomatic. That same surgeon is now, in writing to me, recommending a refusion in the future, pain management, medications, etc. And it's all in writing. So for example, Mr. Tremp, you're not a doctor. How are you opining on this in this life care plan? Well, I did this in a team approach. The actual surgeon and treater told me what the treatment plan is for the future. So I have the medical foundation in writing from the doctor. I then produced the life care plan, had the doctor review it, and he signed off on it, making sure I was accurate in what was reported from him in the first place.
And is it reasonable and appropriate for you to rely upon these treating physicians in providing your foundation? And have you ever been challenged by relying upon these physicians in say, any court proceedings?
No, and in fact, not only have I not been challenged by that, but I'm getting phone calls from a lot of doctor life care planners saying, hey, there's a motion to exclude me because I did a life care plan and I opine in areas that is in my scope. And so I'd say, well, okay, but life care planning says that you need to reach out to the treaters within their scope to get foundation for it. Even if you're a doctor, if you're a neurologist and you're recommending things that a psychiatrist would recommend or a podiatrist or something else, you still need to reach out. So it's very important. It's really unassailable when you have that team component from the actual treaters.
And why is it beneficial to utilize you on a life care plan and then potentially an ECE based upon your rehabilitation expertise, as opposed to piecemealing and going to individual experts on these topics?
Sure. So rehabilitation is just it. I am trained, especially trained from A to Z in rehabilitation. And that is, how do we know what the alteration is from the onset of disability in a global fashion? So essentially, a life care plan is a case management tool, always compiled by a person with rehabilitation. So we reach out to all the different types of providers to get that global feel, as opposed to one singular practitioner. And that's where some problems exist, is one singular practitioner that's very narrow in their scope of practice, very good, but very narrow in their scope of practice, gets into trouble because they try to go into areas that they're not trained for.
All right, so Nick, let's go back to you. So let's say Rob comes up with some figure, I don't know, $1 million, whatever. And how do you come into play in terms of saying, what is that dollar value today? And if you have any specific examples, that would be great for our audience.
Sure. And before I answer that question, I actually want to elaborate a little bit further on what Rob just said, because I see life care plans quite frequently. I see life care plans prepared by the physicians. And it's interesting that Rob brought up a scenario where a physician reaches outside of their own scope. And that is rather common, but it may be even more common where a physician puts together a life care plan that is very narrow to their scope only, which results in essentially omission of many other or potential omission of many other items that should be and would be included in a life care plan by a life care planner, whereas a physician is only limiting the life care plan to their specific area of expertise.
And I'm assuming you've seen hundreds of variations of life care plans presented. You can't offer necessarily opinions about the quality of the life care plan, but simply can only give the economics behind it, right?
Exactly. If I'm presented with a life care plan where the only item, let's say, is a surgery that is due in 10 years, that is the life care plan that I'm evaluating, and that's the life care plan that I'm providing a present value on. However, from seeing hundreds of life care plans, I know that generally speaking, again, that particular case may be an exception, but generally speaking, where there is a need for a surgery, there is typically some need for physical therapy. There is typically some potential need for medications. There's typically certain diagnostics as prior and after the procedure. And it is not uncommon for me not to see those items in life care plans that are prepared specifically by physicians that are somewhat limited in scope.
Okay, makes sense. And household household duties that might have to be for hire now. Maybe a physician might be short-sighted in terms of thinking what those needs might be.
Absolutely. So it is very uncommon, in fact, to see a life care plan that includes a specific category for home services or household production or replacement of household production, whereas a life care planner, if such needs exist, would almost always include the replacement of a homemaid or a lawn maintenance person in the life care plan. Yes.
And why don't you give us an example, Nik? All right, so you've been presented with a life care plan, or you've been presented with an earning capacity claim, or a combination of the two. Tell us what happens.
So recently I worked on a case that Rob has worked on and put a life care plan on, and the nominal value of the case, essentially, if we take Rob's numbers and we simply summed them up, came up to be $2.4 million. In that particular case, it required some surgical in-hospital procedures every year for the life expectancy of the individual. After my calculation, after application of appropriate growth rates to all of the items of the life care plan, and then discounting that life care plan back to present, the present value of the life care plan is a little over $7 million. So that's a case where retaining an economist results in present value of damages that is almost 3 times that presented in nominal value in the life care plan.
And if I could add my 2 cents here, as a trial lawyer, though we don't necessarily want the case to have to go to trial, but if we spend the money and we prepare the case with the life care plan and the EC, and most importantly with the economic evaluation, we now have the foundation with which all of those claims that need to be presented in front of prior fact. Is that not the case?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. So here are really the big questions. That is, one, how does the assistant, whether it be a paralegal, pre-litigation assistant, how do they recognize the right case for hire, and at what point in time should the 2 of you be retained so that damages can be properly presented?
Well, I'll answer this assuming that whoever is reviewing the case in that law firm does not have much medical background, meaning a lay person reviewing the case, which part of that is reviewing the records, part of that is understanding the file, part of that is talking to the patient or the client. And when there is, again, if there is doubt or question, you'll hear it from their clients. Hey, I still hurt. Hey, I had a surgery. There's metal in my, what's going to happen? What about arthritis when I'm older? What about, will I age differently when with this than I normally would have? What about my work? Anytime there's a doubt or question, I absolutely pick up the phone and call me, which lawyers do a lot. I get those calls all day long. Hey, I have this case. Here's the profile. Sometimes I say, not so much there. Other times I'll say, yeah, send it over and we'll work it up. So I think that anytime where there's, again, a life care plan is to answer questions, not raise them. So if you have questions, it's time to make a call.
Nik, any comment in that regard?
Yes, anytime there is a loss of earnings or any expenditure associated with the particular event or a particular injury in the future, you should be reaching out. Now, in some cases, it's small and it may not be worth hiring an economist, but generally speaking, if there is any loss of earning capacity or expectation of a loss of earning capacity losses, or if there is any type of medical cost or other cost associated with the event that will take place in the future, you should be reaching out to an economist.
Okay. this is not really for our lawyer audience, but more so for their assistants. I tell my staff, or I've told them over the years, listen, when you present a demand to an insurance company, anticipated to be in the pre-litigation stage, you've got an obligation to make sure you document any and all claims. And you can't just say, listen, hey, client, you're going to have these ongoing problems without any foundation or support for it, because the carrier is going to say, too bad, so sad. There's no documentation. There's no evidence. We're not acknowledging it. So I try to teach staff members, hey, listen, you've got to document and be persuaded on every claim that's being made. So I'm assuming that both of you have no problem, should an attorney have an inquiry, a query about, hey, is this case worthwhile to proceed, that you'd have no problem answering any and all of their questions about whether it's worthwhile to do so.
Absolutely. That's the whole point.
Without cost.
Yes.
Right. No cost.
No cost.
And then thereafter, you've created, I believe, this process with which the attorneys can get this done on a lien or a letter of protection basis, which means they're not put in a bad financial spot if they have hundreds, if not thousands, of these clients that have these life care needs on a regular, recurring basis.
That's right. And I think what's great about this is historically, because of funding issues, these types of cases wouldn't always get referred. And here, where even if there's just the cost of a surgery in the future, and you need a life care planner to substantiate that in front of the jury or in demand, this is a great way to do right by the patient and just serving the patient or client.
Okay, and one final thought, gentlemen. Why not wait? So, a lawyer's going to say, listen, or the staff member's going to say, well, let's submit a demand and see what happens. Why not follow that approach?
Well, a couple things. I think with this program, there's no need to. Secondly, I get calls a lot of time from panicked lawyers saying, hey, I need this in a week. And also, as the case drags on, things change with that patient or client. I think that the faster you do this up front, the more serious it shows to the triers of fact or whoever's looking at the case that we mean business. This is something that is needed. And I just think it's always a mistake to wait.
And Nik, as it relates to you, I'm assuming that data does change over time, and you have no problem providing any supplements or updates on an as-needed basis.
Yes, absolutely. I very frequently update my. I'm asked to update my reports. Generally speaking, I update the data based on the deposition or the trial date.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, you've been most kind, most gracious, most informative. Is there anything else you think that our audience should know at this point in time?
Yeah, just quickly, I think that's so important to that with this methodology and the methodology I describe is we maintain objectivity no matter who the referral source is or who's paying. The process and the methodology is always the same across the board. And again, as Dave mentioned earlier, both Nik and I support the opinions and the needs by objectivity based on foundation from medical providers, data, et cetera. I just think that's important.
That's an excellent point. You both can testify, and I'm assuming you have testified. You do plaintiff and defense work.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do plaintiff. I'm always retained by defense, and I do plaintiff work. Yes.
And the methodology, regardless of which side you're hired by, remains constant, correct?
That's even stated on the FAQ section of my website that no matter who's paying the bill, the process and methodology remains the same.
Nik, same?
Absolutely, the same here. Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. Well, gentlemen, again, thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure that you will receive more than a handful of calls from our audience going forward.
Call my cell. Yep.
Thank you.
Dave, thank you for having us.
Bye, gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.